Live from the heart of Lincoln, America. Welcome to Ticket Weeknights on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome in, kids. Tom Stevens, Mike Melby, Husker Rewind every Sunday, 5 to 7. Of course, probably not our normal viewership, but we are on the stream today. We're streaming on the Sartor Heyman stream, Husker Rewind, as we do every Sunday night. Okay. Oh, 3. I'm sorry. Sorry, Mike.
You turned 2 off.
I turned 2 off and 3 on.
There we go.
There we go. We are on the air, Husker Rewind, but just on the stream tonight because there's an NFL game. Man, frustrating if you're a Ravens fan. They had so many opportunities. Flowers in the end zone, except he wasn't. Stretches out. It's knocked out by a Chiefs player. That really cost them. Well, then Lamar threw an interception, and but they're still in it. It's 17-10. Baltimore has kicked a field goal with 2:34 left to go. They do have 2 timeouts and the 2-minute warning, so they theoretically could come back. But you look at this game; they've blown it. They've really had a big opportunity to win this game, and it looks like they won't.
And Zay Flowers also, don't forget when he caught the one long pass to get him down to the 10-yard line, then he gets an unsportsmanlike conduct for shoving Janarius Sneed down. So then it's first and 10 from the 25. Granted, they could have scored had Flowers not fumbled, but just bonehead play by Flowers to get the penalty, bonehead play by Flowers to extend the ball the way he did without holding on to it better, to fumble right before the goal line. And then what the hell was Lamar Jackson doing throwing into triple coverage? That made no sense at all.
There was a play called on the Ravens for a late hit on Mahomes, which extended a drive and ran 3 more minutes off it. It does feel like there's a Mahomes bias. Maybe it's just my Chiefs hatred. And I wouldn't say hatred. I just don't like them. Don't like them.
But go back and watch the NFC title game last year, the Super Bowl last year. Every 50-50 or anything that was subjective always favored the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never liked the Chiefs, but this year I have grown an absolute disdain for the Kansas City Chiefs.
And there's a flag on the Chiefs, so that's a big penalty on the Chiefs. It looks like a big run by Pacheco is going to come back, and it's going to be 1st and 15, and that also stops the clock. So that's a big deal. The Chiefs are going to get penalized, I believe. Wait and see on that one, but
they deserve it.
And then the Lions tonight. Who are you going for? San Francisco? It is on the Ravens. They're calling it on the Ravens.
Imagine that.
Every call has gone against the Ravens. Every one of them.
Yeah.
It's just not fair. So the Chiefs, it looks like, are going to make the Super Bowl.
Well, I mean, as a Cowboys fan, it's in my DNA. I'm not allowed to root for the 49ers because of Joe Montana and Dwight Clark and the catch.
I guess I became a 49ers fan like a lot of Husker fans because of Rathman and Craig. And remember, they had the sticker on the side of the helmet.
I get it, and I didn't care. They are not at Nebraska anymore, and I didn't care. I still didn't like them.
Yeah. Well, I get it.
Now, at least I can respect San Francisco because, like, to me, Christian McCaffrey is one of the best guys in the NFL, one of the best genuine human beings in the NFL. So I can respect that. But Mahomes is not genuine. Mahomes is, I mean, watch the whatever quarterback show you're talking about.
Kirk Cousins was in it. Patrick Mahomes was in it. You had Ritter. You had a few other guys in it. And I just didn't think Mahomes, and his wife especially, Mahomes was okay, but his wife came off as just kind of a brat. And so I just, Brittany.
She came off as words we cannot say on the radio.
She came off as a little bit of a brat to me. And I guess I'm tired of the Taylor Swift thing. Just give me football without.
So ESPN, no offense, ESPN. Well, lots of offense, ESPN. No one cares that follows sports to see you have your top headline on your list of stories be, here's a video of Taylor Swift celebrating Travis Kelce's TD. Stop. That's not sports.
Let's get to the opening kickoff.
Lasher will kick it off for Oklahoma. The Sooners are in white. We are in Lincoln, Nebraska, and we are ready to go.
You know who else was ready to go today? Nash Hutmacher. Nash wins, I think it was 19-13 over some dude from Wisconsin. Nebraska rolled in that one over the Badgers. Badgers are a top 25 team. I think Nebraska's ranked 6th, but Nash was pretty dominant. And an all too familiar scene for Nebraska basketball yesterday when they play on the road. They just absolutely get abused by a team.
What is it, do you think?
It's
tough to win on the road. I mean, it really is tough to win on the road.
Yeah, but when one of your leaders, one of the guys you brought in to be like the guy that's played up 500 games in college basketball that you expect on the road to have some poise and have some stand-upishness or whatever, when he's sitting there pouting and won't, high-five teammates or touch hands with them or whatever, and he walks around like somebody kicked his dog. I mean, I'm not going to say who it is, but watch the game, you'll figure it out. That's a problem.
I also think the lack of a point guard has really hurt this team. I wonder how much differently. I wonder how different Nebraska would be if Aaron Eulis were available.
I don't know how good he is. That's the whole thing. I
don't think he needs to be good. Great. I think he needs to be serviceable, and he would be a dramatic.
We don't know if he is. He started a lot of games at Iowa. The thing was, he never finished them. So I don't know what he brings.
I would have loved to have found out.
Exactly.
And I also think that not having Blaise Keita has hurt this team.
Yeah, I totally agree.
The physicality of a Keita. I mean, I just think that he would have been really good to have in a game like yesterday, or go back to Minnesota or Rutgers. The guy plays 15. If he can give you 15 minutes and 5 rebounds, which he's done before, I think that's a big difference for this team.
Well, he had a game last year. He played 10 minutes and he had 11 points and 12 rebounds. I mean, he has that ability.
And he didn't play more than maybe 10 minutes in that game.
Yeah, that was it. He played 10 minutes.
And you get Julian Reese, who had 16 rebounds. I think that he could be effective on a guy like that.
Yeah. So Nebraska gets smoked at Maryland, 73-51 yesterday, and the score is not indicative of how much of a whooping that was by Maryland.
That was a whooping.
Put a damper on the week after a home win against Ohio State. They didn't play well in the last 10 minutes of the game, which is starting to become a concern. That's starting to become a habit for them, regardless of home or away. However, they figured out how to get the W against the Buckeyes. Rank, what a game, man. 34-10, goes 6 of 8 from three-point range. Up next for Nebraska, 13th ranked Wisconsin at the Vault on Thursday. Women's basketball team is now 13-7, 5-4 after getting smoked by Caitlin Clark and Iowa. They host Purdue on Wednesday at PBA. And somebody they posted the video of when Caitlin Clark drove by Jazz Shelley. Jazz Shelley was a little physical with her. There was no call out by the three-point line. She kind of bumped her a little bit, and then she walked right by her and scored a layup. And as they're going back up the floor, Iowa intercepts the inbounds pass. And so Caitlin Clark spins around. Jazz Shelley kind of starts going back towards it. And you see Caitlin Clark a couple of times check over her shoulder. And then she stops and kind of throws this little mini shoulder into Jazz Shelley. Wasn't much of a hit. Nothing got called. But they're like, more motivation for Pack the Vault. And Bob, like it was this massive cheap shot. And it's like, no, it was an attempted cheap shot. But it's not like there was an intent to injure or whatever. She bumped her. If that's what you got to look for motivation after getting smoked again by Iowa, then I think you're stretching. So sorry,
by the
Nebraska
way,
women's basketball fans, get over it.
Valdez Scantling just makes a big catch on third down. The Chiefs have pretty much sealed it now and are going to the Super Bowl. Third and 7, Mahomes completes like a 30-yard pass. So
figures.
I mean, he's really, really good. And my point is, he's really, really good. He doesn't need that much help by the officials, because he gets a lot of it. He gets a lot of extra help.
He does. Former Husker outside hitter Allie Batenhorst is going to continue her playing career at USC. She announced yesterday. As Tom just mentioned, looks like Kansas City headed to the Super Bowl. No surprise there. I can guarantee you, no matter what would have happened in this game, the referees and the NFL would have made sure that the Chiefs got back. In a totally unsurprising move, Jim Harbaugh has left Michigan to become a head coach in the NFL. He will be the head coach for the Chargers. Sharon Moore was named new head coach at Michigan on Friday. Interesting happenings to an NFL player. New England Patriots wide receiver Kayshon Boutte was arrested Thursday in Baton Rouge over allegations of illegal sports betting while playing at LSU. The Louisiana State Police Gaming Enforcement Division found that Boutte bet on sports from April 6th of 2022 until May 7th of 23, when he was 20 years old. I'm assuming on May 8th, he turned 21. He used an alias to get around the age requirement. He placed more than 8,900 wagers, and at least 17 of those on NCAA football games, including at least 6 involving LSU.
Yeah, that's not good. When you bet on your own team, and that's where Eulis, I think, got in trouble when he was at Iowa.
Yeah, he didn't bet. I don't think he bet on the Hawkeye basketball team. He bet on the football
team.
But yeah, regardless, it really does make you wonder, though, how deep. I mean, I can almost guarantee you it happens at every university in some way, shape, or form. There is a student athlete that is illegally gambling.
What do you think of this?
Because it's so easy to do.
With NIL, obviously they can do endorsements. Can they do endorsements for gambling?
That's a great question. I mean, is Warhorse Casino going to throw $200,000 a year at Dylan Raiola to be the face of the casino?
You can't bet on the games, but can you endorse the product? I'm wondering. I don't know.
I would think Trev Alberts might have a problem if a Nebraska student athlete was going to endorse a gambling facility. I don't think it matters.
I think he has I think a lot of these athletic directors have a big problem with NIL in general. Even though they say they're in favor of it, I don't think a lot of them are.
I think they're in favor of it, but I also believe they feel like it needs to be controlled, not just complete.
It's the wild, wild west.
Yeah, and to a point, the Iowa guy, the 5-star at Alabama, cover that really quick. You talk about wild, wild west and tampering.
I can't think of his name right now, but he's a offensive tackle, played for Alabama, one of the 29 players to transfer when Nick Saban left the program, transferred to Iowa, and makes a statement once he gets to Iowa. Hey, I just want to thank the Iowa coaching staff for all their support when I was at Alabama and homesick.
Yeah, that's Caden Proctor.
That's called tampering. The last time I checked.
Yeah, I appreciate him checking in with me all year during the season.
And I don't think it's for the first time it's happened. I think it happens all the time in college football. I think that, when Ernest Hausman had 15 tackles against Michigan, then suddenly he's going to Michigan. That's suspicious to me.
Yeah. Is he going to transfer to Los Angeles to play for the Chargers now?
Yeah. Who knows?
Not that allegedly anybody involved on the Michigan staff that's now with the Chargers made a phone call to him. Illegal. Whatever. In breaking news earlier today that goes down as, yep, that's the Iowa way. Kirk Ferentz has hired Tim Lester as the new offensive coordinator at Iowa. He was the head coach at Western Michigan. He was fired in 2022 after having the 127th best offense in the country. He was an analyst for the Packers this past season. And in 2022, his Western Michigan offense, points per game, 119th. Woohoo! Yards per game, 125th. First downs per game, 120th, and his quarterbacks completed 49.9% of the passes. I'm going to steal this from one of the podcasts that supports Nebraska. They tweeted out something along the lines of every answer to every question Kirk Ferentz asked in the interview was, I think Deacon Hill is a great quarterback, and she had no right to fire your son. I mean, he's literally the second worst offensive coordinator in the last 5 years in major college football, and he's going to replace the worst. So I guess technically it's a step up.
Whatever. In some ways, I don't think Kirk Ferentz wants a good offense. I think he's very comfortable running for 3 yards a carry, 3 times in a row, punting the football and giving it back to his defense and winning games 13-10 as he did against Nebraska. They've won so many games that way.
But you don't always have Cooper DeJean, so.
No, they don't. They always seem to have a pretty good defense, though.
Yeah. I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Their offense has been terrible for a long, long time.
Yeah. Ever since Brian took over.
That's right. But he'll probably get a gig. I mean, who knows? Brian Ferentz will end up somewhere.
Yeah, he'll be the water boy at like Eastern Louisiana Tech.
By the way, we talked about coaching changes. Iowa just hired an offensive coordinator, Tim Lester, as you mentioned, from Western Michigan. Michigan just hired a head coach to replace Jim Harbaugh. Sharon, I didn't think Sharon, is it Sharon Moore?
I thought it was Sharon, but
Sharon
we're
Moore,
both probably wrong.
The offensive coordinator, coached 4 games this year, did a really good job in Jim Harbaugh's absence, suspended a couple of different times during the season. One for the spine scandal, which we all know that they did, and he still denies. So Moore takes over after doing a very good job. He's very young, probably one of the younger coaches in college football at 37. Did Michigan get it right there?
No,
do you think?
No. Gosh, no. That's a horrible hire. I get it. You're going to try to keep recruits, but 5 years from now, he's not going to be the head coach at Michigan.
And what you just said is the reason I think they did it. I think he did a really good job, but it's much different, being a coach for 4 games and taking over a program, especially this day and age when you really have to be a GM, a CEO, all those things, and a head coach. And maybe he'll work out, but I think those are big, big shoes to fill.
Yeah,
I didn't like Jim Harbaugh, but he's a great, great coach.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong, but he's a great coach when he cheats. Maybe I'm wrong. Sharon Moore can be the next Lincoln Riley, possible, or the next Ryan Day, but I don't see it. I just don't.
What they were trying to prevent is what happened at both Washington and Alabama, and more so Alabama, with 29 guys leaving.
Yeah.
You hire a new guy and everybody leaves almost instantaneously. And you understand why. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a legend. He's probably the best. No, he is the best coach in the history of football.
I would agree.
College or pro.
Yeah. And the thing is, though, with Alabama, I mean, if I'm a player, I get it. He's been a great coach everywhere he's gone, and he's got Midwestern ties and blah, blah, blah. And the story's awesome from where he came from. But Kalen DeBoer is not a good fit at Alabama. I mean, there's 40 boosters that he needs to worry about that he didn't have to worry about at Washington.
That is true.
And if you're a player at Alabama,
I'll just play the devil's advocate. That place recruits itself. And
it used to. Nobody
has ever been really good since, let's face it, Saban kind of invented that job since Bear Bryant was there. They hadn't been really, I know they'd won a national title. Would they win 2 national titles without Saban? Was it 1 or 2 without Saban? Since Bear Bryant. Well, Bear Bryant won several.
Yeah.
Went back in the 70s and 80s. But since then, they went through kind of a dry spell. And then Saban wins, I think, 7 altogether, 1 at LSU and 6 at Alabama. He's by far the best coach in college football history. So anybody you get is not going to, it's kind of like Nebraska replacing Tom Osborne. Anybody you get, and Frank Solich was really good, 59 and 19. Anybody you get is not going to be Nick Saban.
No, Gene Stallings in 92 is the only one that won.
That's okay. So that basically tells you that that's a really hard job without a legend. Even Alabama's a hard job without a Nick Saban or a Bear Bryant.
And that's my point. Alabama recruits for itself to the name when Nick Saban's the head coach,
right?
But not when he's not the head coach. Whether it was Bill Curry, Mike DeBose, no, they don't recruit to that.
And Michigan hadn't won a national title. They won the 97 national title, which was really Nebraska's. But they hadn't won a real title, an outright title since like the 40s, which I don't count anything before the 70s. I don't count it. I just don't. When you had like 3 different kind of titles and everybody's, writers are voting and coaches are voting and you don't really have a true title winner, it's tough for me to take those as seriously. In fact, even Nebraska in 70 and Nebraska in 97, I don't count them the same as I do the other 3 national titles. I just don't.
Fair enough.
They're not the same to me. I know they're still national titles and Nebraska still won them. But when you were dominant in 95 and you were obviously the title winner, or 71 or 94, those to me are bigger titles than the others that are kind of split. But I think you're right. I think DeBoer's a really good coach. I think his record is 105 and 12 overall on all of his stops. He's a really good football coach. But is he the right fit? I don't know. I don't think we're going to know until we know.
Yeah. So I've been trying to pull it up because I'm like, man, there was a host of coaches after Bear Bryant. Ray Perkins, whatever, he went 48 and 32 from 83 to 86. Bill Curry from 87 to 89, 36 and 26. Gene Stallings had 1 natty, but he went 87 and 62. Then Mike DuBose, not great.
Shula was there, right? For
Dennis
a while?
Francione, I don't think so.
Shula, Dennis Francione. Okay.
No, Mike. Oh, yeah, Mike Shula. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Mike Shula was there from 03 to 06. Do you know who Nick Saban ultimately took over for? It was not Mike Shula, because I believe he was fired in 06 and someone finished interim at the end.
I have no idea.
I've never heard this name before. Joe Kines, Kines.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
He was 1-0. He's the greatest coach in Alabama history. He never lost.
I thought he had taken over for Shula, but I don't remember Joe Kynes.
Well, no, and he technically did because he started in 07. Shula was the head coach at the beginning of 06, but was fired with one game to go, and Joe Kynes finished it up. So,
well, there you go. It's like the old saying goes: you don't ever want to replace a legend. I mean, it almost never works out. It did for Nebraska with Tom Osborne, replacing Bob Devaney, but in the history of football, it almost never works out. No. It kind of worked out with Solich. I mean, he really did have a pretty good record, but it didn't work out because he got fired.
Yeah, I mean, granted, you can go back and what would have happened had he not been fired and had he not had Steve Peterson as an AD. If he would have had someone that supported him,
right?
If
he's in the College Football Hall of Fame, so he's a really good coach.
Yeah, no, but that's if T.O. would have been the head coach or the AD, instead of going into government,
right?
I think Solich would have had a much longer leash, and he probably would have had another 5-year plus to figure out how good he is.
Yeah,
I don't think he would have succeeded. I personally don't.
I don't know. I will never find out. We know that he did succeed after he left Nebraska at Ohio.
Yep.
But the expectations at Ohio are much less than Nebraska.
The competition level of coaches and competition level of players is a little different too.
But that was a grease fire before he hit Ohio. That was not a good job.
Totally.
That was a really bad job. And he turned it into a pretty good job because they had another good year this year.
Yeah.
Let's get to break and talk a little football and hoops with BC, one of our favorites, Brian Christopherson of Husker 24/7. We'll do that coming up next.
After a long, hot summer, are you ready for fall? What about your home? Is your heating system ready for cooler temperatures ahead? Be sure and call Bryant for your fall heating check. No matter what brand of equipment you own, Bryant's trained technician will thoroughly clean and inspect your furnace or heat pump to make sure you stay warm and comfortable. Call today to schedule your home heating check. 467-1111. Bryant Air Conditioning, Heating, Electrical, and Plumbing. 467-1111. We do whatever it takes.
So, I just got the State Farm Personal Price Plan on my car insurance.
So you told your agent you play the bagpipes for your dog?
What? No, I didn't get that personal. My agent just helped me create an affordable price just for me. Okay, let me show you what I've been working on. Hey, Buster!
Call your local State Farm agent, Vinny Krekak, at 402-474-1173.
Prices vary by state. Options selected by customer. Availability and eligibility may vary.
It takes a great game plan to win a football game each week, and right now, it's time to plan a trip to get a new car at Mullen Motors. Just like on the football field, there's a wall of defense on the way to Mullen Motors. 48th Street is under construction from Layton all the way to Cornhusker Highway. But the lot at Mullen Motors is full of tons of great vehicles to drive home this fall for the ultimate touchdown. Mullen Motors, still open through road construction at 48th and Walker.
No taglines, just quality vehicles. Mullen Motors.
If you struggle with joint pain, there's good news. You don't need surgery to get back to full health. South Point Medical and Aesthetics offers breakthrough non-surgical options for treatment of moderate to severe joint pain. Our patients experience little to no downtime from our procedures, and the results are remarkable. They've had 14 years of successful treatments with patients from 35 states because of an effective word-of-mouth traffic. Learn more about how you can get lasting results for joint pain today at southpointmedical.com or call 402-323-8400. Brown Shoe Fit has all types of shoes for you to excel this fall. Check out their large variety of tennis shoes and dress shoes in brands like Brooks, Hoka, Merrell, On, and many more. Browns has the local professionals to get the proper fit, aided by their high-tech foot scanner by Aetrex. Stop by Brown Shoe Fit today, just south of 66th and Q in Lincoln, or check out their options online at brownshoefitco.com.
Allo is turning 20 this year, and we plan to celebrate all year long. Since 2003, Allo has vowed to put customers first and deliver a drastically different experience. No matter where you live, work, or play, we believe you deserve an affordable, secure, and reliable connection. We're proud to have served our businesses and residents with seriously fast fiber optic service for 2 decades. Thank you for trusting Allo as your local internet, phone, and TV provider. Follow us on social media to know about the 20th anniversary celebrations in all our Allo communities.
Summer is winding down, but there's no reason to put your golf clubs away. Double Eagle Golf makes golf leagues and events possible year-round. Sign up today for 9-hole leagues this fall, any day from Monday to Friday, starting on September 25th. Check out their deals on monthly memberships and schedule your Husker watch parties, birthday or bachelor parties, corporate and team outings, or just a good old Saturday with the boys. That's all at Double Eagle Golf inside the Kinetic Sports Complex on West O Street. Call today at 402-742-0140.
Rashawn Jackson here for Bauer Infrastructure, a veteran-owned local company proudly serving Lincoln, Lancaster County, and the surrounding areas. Bauer provides quality work at an affordable price, and they're growing rapidly. If you want to experience a career with a fast-paced, family-friendly environment, visit BauerInfrastructure.com. They have top-of-the-line benefits, year-round work, even through the winter. Bauer, usher in the new era of infrastructure to an area near you. And as always, go Big Red!
Back to the Ticket weeknights on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back to Husker Rewind here on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. That is Tom Stevens.
Hello.
I am Mike Melby, and joining us now on the Allo VIP line, exceptional service with local heart with Allo Fiber. It is Mr. Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. BC, how are you, man?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
We're doing good.
I'm not doing good, man. The Chiefs won. I'm not happy.
Are you a Chiefs fan? Are you in on the Chiefs, or do you care either way? How do you feel about the Chiefs, BC?
I'm quietly down on the Chiefs, but I lay low because I know I'm surrounded in this area, so I just kind of keep to myself about it. But I was not rooting for them if it were put before the lie detector test.
I'm not a big Mahomes fan after watching the quarterbacks on Netflix. I just didn't love it. His wife, not so much him, but maybe his wife is kind of a brat. But what Kelsey did before, did you hear what happened with Kelsey before the game in the warm-ups?
I saw
with Justin Tucker?
Tucker's helmet to the side, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a couple of footballs that were there as well. I guess my understanding is he actually did it twice. And they caught it on video once.
I blame Taylor Swift. Swift.
Yeah. I mean, Chiefs fans should enjoy it because, when you're on top, you got to relish those moments because it doesn't last forever. Although it might last a while, it seems like. But they also can understand why the rest of us are a little tired of it because they would feel the same way if it were, say, our Minnesota Vikings, Tom, ever made a run of 4 Super Bowls in 5 years, which I can't imagine the world would blow up before then. But if it happened, people would be sick of us. But,
I want people to be sick of us. I want people to hate us. But they never do. They just only feel sorry for us. So, but the Chiefs, I guess that's when you're really good, people hate you. So, maybe it's a crown. Maybe it's something they should wear.
I got to go back 25 years before it's the case for my NFL team and the Cowboys.
Yep.
Although that's not true. Everybody that's not a Cowboys fan hates the Cowboys.
Yep. There you go. BC, Husker basketball, they lose again on the road. They obviously play really well at home, and we saw that again earlier this week versus Ohio State in the blowout win where Rick Mass gets 34 points. They go on the road. He only gets 5 in the loss, and a big loss to Maryland, 73-51. How do you explain what goes on with this team when they hit the road?
Yeah, it's really disappointing. I mean, it is tough for everybody in this league to win away, but you would have hoped they would have got at least 1 or 2 of these at this point. And I'm really hoping we're not looking back, in whatever it is, 7-8 weeks at the game at Minnesota and the game at Rutgers in particular as games that were right there in your hand. You're up double digits in the second half. And you don't close the deal because, if you had even one of those, you'd feel a little bit better right now. If you had both of them, you'd feel way better and you could accept some of these other road losses. But yesterday was disheartening, and it was disheartening because it was the third game on the road where there was a familiar theme of, as Fred Hoiberg terms it, just getting punked on the glass. And obviously, Maryland, I think, played well, and I think they're maybe a better team than their record shows. I think they're on the climb, but Nebraska, you've got to have a little bit more to you on the glass if you're going to go on the road and get a win. And so it was really frustrating when you turn the ball over more times then you make field goals, and that's what happened in the game yesterday. So it was a frustrating day.
Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7 joining us on the Allo VIP line. Brian, one thing I want to ask you, let's say Nebraska holds serve and continues to look horrible on the road, and they go 0-5 in their remaining 5 road games, and they continue to look like a Final Four team at home, and they go 6-0 at home, and they lose in the ultimately Thursday game, the first one that they play in the Big Ten tournament. If you're on the NCAA selection committee, how do you take Nebraska? They can't win on the road in the league, and they couldn't win on a neutral floor in the league.
Yeah, it definitely could be a subtraction against them. I think they've got to break through and get a couple somehow, some way. It's not going to be easy either when you look at the schedule. I mean, after Wisconsin, you're going to Illinois, which whatever you think about the situation involving Terrence Shannon, and I'm not here to get all into that in this segment, but he's back, and Illinois is a top 10 team, and that looks really tough. And then, Northwestern, as we saw in Lincoln, was a very tough game at PBA for Nebraska. So you got to beat them away from home. But to your question, Mike, I do think they're going to need a couple at some point. And I also think it's going to be really hard to hold serve, frankly, in every game at home. That would be ideal, but Thursday is going to be a real challenge. I don't know for sure when Jawan Gary is going to be back. What the deal is there. So you might have to do it without him for a few more games, and it's just a little worrisome the way it's sort of a Jekyll and Hyde deal with this team. You love the energy and the tenacity they play with at home, and you particularly see it on the defensive end. I feel like they have a little bit more edge and just something to them on the glass. And then when they get away from that building, it just kind of goes away. And so they've got to find it. But first things first, you got to lick your wounds, and you got to realize the narrative on the road thing is a very real deal, but go protect your home now on Thursday. Yeah. Like if you could beat Wisconsin, if you could bounce back and put that on your resume, I mean, it would be a fascinating study if this team doesn't win a road game, but they just keep, winning out at home, and like, what do you do with that? But overall, they might still have a shot, of getting in with that because of some of the wins that would be on their resume. So you got to take care of the game in front of you Thursday. You got to see it as a big opportunity to stick another huge one next to Purdue. And, the K-State road win looks good too, even though it doesn't count in league play. So that counts. But yeah, this has to be a team that shows, as they have in the past, that they can get over adversity and that they can feed off the crowd and find their edge again defensively and on the glass.
Talking Little Hoops with BC, Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. It feels a little bit like that Tim Miles team that they go 13-8 or 13-7, something like that, and didn't make the tournament. But the good news is you still have Michigan on the road. They're really bad this year. You have a lot of winnable games. Penn State seems winnable. Minnesota's at home. You've got a big opportunity with Wisconsin this week. Illinois is going to be really tough on the road. Northwestern's going to be really tough on the road. But they have some wins. If they were to knock off Wisconsin, that would be, two really impressive wins. And I think the Northwestern win is going to be really impressive when you look back at it. But in your opinion, where do they need to get? Does it matter whether it's home or away, or just are they going to look at that is the selection committee and say, hey, Nebraska's got 21, that's good enough?
Nobody knows for sure, but the number I've set in league play is get to 11 and see what happens with it. And that's not easy, but if they can get to, and this is going to sound bad to say out loud because it's going to hurt getting there, but over the next 3 games, I actually thought this even before Maryland, and I didn't want to say it out loud. But if they're 6-7 after Northwestern, so that's the Wisconsin game, then they go to Illinois, then they go to Northwestern. So that means they'd only win one of the next 3. And the grumbling that would be attached to that. However, if they are 6-7, when I look at the schedule to finish, I would think they could win at least 5 of the last 7 games. I really could. I mean, you get, as you said, you get Michigan twice. You get one of them in your barn. You get Penn State, which is one of the worst teams in the league at PBA. You get Minnesota there. You go to Indiana, you go to Ohio State. Maybe you can get, one or two of those. So there is definitely a chance for this team to make a real strong finishing kick if they're at full strength and they're playing their best basketball. What you really hope is they're not like sitting 5-8. You've lost all your momentum, and it's kind of tough to dig out of that hole. So they're not thinking about it like we are, obviously, on the inside. They're just thinking about the next game, and they'd love to win at least 2 of the next 3, and maybe they can. But I'm just saying it's not over if they can at least win one of those, because one of those will look really good on their resume, and then they've got a chance to really finish strong. So all is not lost if they're like 6-7 a week and a half from now. And in fact, I dare say I would almost take it and run with it and just see what happens down the stretch. So maybe that's a very pessimistic viewpoint of things, but I've thought about this. I called it a 4-game stretch before Maryland for a while, and I was pretty worried about it. And honestly, Saturday made me more worried about it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you. I'm going to throw Northwestern out as a guaranteed loss on the road because I think the standpoint of the way Northwestern played down the stretch in the game here in Lincoln, they're going to be overly motivated based on their own performance, and that to me is going to be almost the toughest game to win. Although Illinois may be a different level than we are, especially on the road for Nebraska. But what would be bigger if Nebraska goes 1-1 against Illinois on the road and Wisconsin at home? Which one is bigger for Nebraska on the resume? Is it Illinois on the road?
Yeah, I would say so, because you get more. There's just more oomph that goes with that in the metrics, like in the net rankings and stuff. Now both would be quad 1 wins, so you could make the argument they're both the same, unless Wisconsin just falls off a ledge down the stretch, which I don't think they will. So I mean, they're in that same category, but road wins always count for a little bit more, in sort of their value. And so, yeah, I would say that would be the bigger of the two, and it would obviously be a huge pelt to put on the wall for that whole thing of like, oh, they can't win away from PBA. Like if you went and beat Illinois, in their building, that would almost be equal to like 2 road wins. It feels like to me, 2 or 3. So that one I would say would have more significance. But if they could grab Wisconsin on Thursday and beat them, and even if they lost the next 2, and there's going to be that negative narrative about these guys just can't, what happens to them when they leave the area code, they still are in position. And I am going to beat that drum. But you got to get one of these next 3, and ideally you'd get 2. That would be awesome to keep your head above 500, and then you go on a run down the stretch. So all is not lost if there's a loss or 2 over the next week and a half, but you do need, I think, one of these games to really kind of keep boosting like the spirits that this can happen. You're right there, you're in contention, you're on the bubble, make that big kick, but you do need something good to happen in this next week and a half.
Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7, talking a little Husker hoops. Barring a complete collapse, it looks like Nebraska is at least going to be in the NIT. Is that good enough in your mind that Hoiberg is automatically back next year?
I always look at it from what do I think Trev Alberts or the brass is thinking about the situation. And whenever I listen to him speak about the changes that Fred has made to his staff, and obviously, he switched up his assistant coaches, and I think we've seen it sort of in the way they've recruited the last 2 years and the type of teams and the template for which they're trying to build their roster is different than it was. And I get the sense that Trev Alberts is very appreciative of that switch and sees the progress in that and the possibilities that are happening with that. So my best guess, and it is a guess, but it is based off listening to what the AD says when he's asked about basketball, is that I don't think it's do or die right now. I think there was sort of whether people like this or not, I feel like there was a reset that happened on the program. And now if they had just stunk it up last year and they completely stunk this year, it'd be a different story, but they don't. There is like signs that they're getting close to figuring this out. And I sort of think, there'll be at least one more season no matter what. But obviously you got to let the games play out, because you never know how everybody's feeling like 10 games from now. You can't just fall off the edge of the cliff here. You got to be that team that makes people proud and does protect your home court, and eventually does get a win on the road. So it's still, there's still a lot to prove for everybody. Don't get me wrong.
Brian Christopherson of Husker 24/7 joining us on Husker Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket on the Allo VIP line. BC, I want to get a quick jump over to the quietness and the eeriness that is no press conferences, off-season winter conditioning football, the program with the new transfers that are coming in, guys trying to find their way around campus, learning what the Corey Campbell's workouts are like, and all this buildup that is going to start slowly jumping on top of each other as the players stack days in the weight room headed towards the spring game. What are your thoughts right now on football?
There is a quietness right now. I do think probably Rule will speak soon. He, in a way, and this is not me sucking up. This is the truth. He's actually talks a lot more like in the off season than we're used to, and so we sort of got a taste of that last year. We'll see if he does it as much. But I mean, remember last season, like he did the early signing day press conference. And then I think it was about now or February. He just did another one just because, like, let's answer some questions here, sort of what's happened since then. And so I'm sort of expecting there might be one of those pretty soon. Obviously, there would be reason to talk about the Glenn Thomas hire, how that fits with Satterfield, and what his vision is for that. I do know, they're kind of filling out some pieces on their recruiting staff right now, and some within sort of their support staff system. So maybe they're waiting for that. I don't know. We'll see. But I do think we'll hear from him probably sooner than later if it goes like last year did. And I think he likes to have a voice and an outlet to the fans to say this is what's going on. But for the players and all those guys, yeah, it's going to be like, let's put our heads down and work sort of without the spotlight on now. Let's build this culture and build this team. And this is an important time for, there's 17 or 18 early enrollees that are on campus right now, and I've talked to a lot of them for stories, and there's most of those guys are thinking, I can contribute in 24. I can help this team. And I saw how close Nebraska was in some of those games. And while we're tired of the word close around here, it does still play with those guys who just got here, who looked at last season, the first year of Rule's time at Nebraska, and thought they're not that far away. And if I were there, I can help make the difference to get this team over the top. So we'll see how many of those young guys can prove themselves in these months. I think it's important that some of them build up their bodies. And obviously the big question is your QBs like Raiola and Danny Kalen, like, how they're winning respect by how they attack things, because now you're to that point where nobody cares, what your recruiting ranking was or whatever. It's like, how do you fit in here and how do you lead and win respect for how you go about it every day. And so I'm sure there's some young guys who want to prove that they're all about that.
One final one for you, BC. You mentioned the hiring of Glenn Thomas, the quarterback coach. I think Dylan Raiola has already mentioned that they have a relationship building, and I think that was the big reason. You have Dylan Raiola, you hire a quarterback coach. The quarterbacks really struggled last year. He's got a decent resume, maybe not sexy for some Husker fans, comes from the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he did have a great year with Matt Ryan when he was doing big things at Atlanta. How big is this for Nebraska in your mind, the hiring of Glenn Thomas?
I think it's just a common sense hire for Rule. Like it's a guy that he's been with before. Satterfield's been with. Glenn had success with Charlie Brewer at Baylor, and he had some success with PJ Walker at Temple. And the thing I like as I look through those numbers is the TD-INT ratio is nice. There was
not negative.
Go ahead.
No, I just said it's not negative.
Yeah, like if it was even Steven, we'd be pretty impressed by it, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like 3-1 on one of the years and 2-1 on some of the other years. And so it's like, okay, I think people would take that around here. Obviously, he's working with different QBs, but I think there's got to be a ton of excitement from his vantage point of, why would you not want to like go work with the guy with the tools of Raiola and see what you can do with that. Like that's got to fire him up. I actually think too, this is good for Marcus Satterfield, and some people would flinch at that because they'd say, okay, why? He was the offensive coordinator by himself. Now he's the co-OC. Doesn't that seem like a demotion? I think, fair or not, he was going to take a lot of arrows last year for an offense that I thought was probably going to struggle no matter who was calling the plays in some ways, because I just don't think they had the right piece at quarterback. And with some of the injuries that stacked up, I sort of thought it was going to be difficult. Could things have been better, done better at certain circumstances? Perhaps. But I don't think anyone would have looked really good last year. And now he gets to work with the tight ends in this offense, which they want to be more positionless. And that means he's going to be close with guys like Carter Nelson and Keelan Smith and some of these, wide receiver tight end hybrids and Jaden Dawson. He's guys that can move around the chessboard, and he gets to work in the room with them every day. I think it could be useful for him as a coach. And also now it spreads out the responsibility a little bit. And I think there's something to be said for that. Like, if there's a bad day at the office, the talk radio for the next week and on our message boards isn't just about one guy. It's about everybody takes responsibility for it, and everybody's going to be part of the success and failure. So I think in a way, whether it was intentional or not, it kind of takes a narrative off the board that was floating in the air all of last season, and now it's not as prevalent. So maybe that's going to be good for everybody, and I would think it would be good for a coach's sanity who's in the middle of that too.
I do agree with you, BC. One question I have, who is going to call plays? Do you have an inkling, or do you already know? Have you heard anything?
I don't know for sure. That's where, what I know is that they hired Glenn Thomas and their co-OCs, and that's what I know. So, beyond that, I don't think anybody's got all the secrets about exactly how they're going to handle it, which is why the next rule time where he speaks, I think, is going to be interesting. Now, how much he'll lay out, I don't know, but I think we found that Matt Rule sometimes tells us some stuff, like he in early December, if you go back to the press conference, he told us what was going to happen with the coaching hire without saying it. He said, a year ago, we actually were probably going to have Satterfield at tight ends to begin with, and then things kind of changed. And he kind of told everybody, look for it, without it happening yet. And so my point being, I don't go into the press conferences now thinking we're not going to learn anything and it's just going to be coach speak. Sometimes I think there's actually some really interesting stuff said, which I appreciate, and I think the fans do. So maybe we're going to get some of that, hopefully sooner than later, but we'll wait on that. But I don't know. That's a good question. Your inkling is to say it's still Satterfield until we're told otherwise, but I can't say that 100%.
Jameson Williams goes 42 yards on a reverse. The Lions take a 7-0 lead over San Francisco. So maybe the Lions in the Super Bowl. That would be fun. It'd be fun to see the Lions get to the Super Bowl.
You're a better guy than I am, Tom. I'm a guy who, if they're in my division, I hold grudges. Even though the Lions have been so sour for 3 decades, it's just I don't want you to have success if I can't have it.
I agree.
So I'm not as pleasant as you.
If it were the Packers, I would not want them in the Super Bowl. The Bears, I would not want them in the Super Bowl. But I feel bad for the Lions throughout. But you're right. I should hate them. They're in our division.
No, you shouldn't. That's a good quality you have. I'm saying that I'm not the person I probably should be for thinking that.
Well, I'm sure. Are you going to hang out at Schaefer's next week? I'm sure he's having a big Super Bowl bash.
I don't know. He can't stand the Chiefs either. So we would be in similar. Yeah. We'd have similar takes. I think
that's right.
On the game.
Who would you root for? Because you hate the Lions, you hate the Chiefs. You would have no one to root for. That just you have to root for a good commercial, I guess.
Just hope that Usher still has his dance moves from when I was in high school and college. That's
there you go.
Yeah, if he throws out a hip, I'm going to be so disappointed.
BC, thanks for the time. You're the best. We'll have you hopefully back before the end of the basketball season, for sure.
Yeah. Hopefully they stack up some wins and make it real fun for us, but we'll see.
Absolutely. Thanks, BC. Have a good one.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you. Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. That is tough to watch the Super Bowl. You mentioned that you're not really interested in watching the Super Bowl because you don't like the Chiefs.
Well, if it's the Chiefs and the Niners, as a Cowboys fan, I just it's inherent after the Montana and Dwight Clark catch that I can't like them no matter what. I respect them at least. And I think Christian McCaffrey is one of the most awesome people out there.
Yeah.
But I would root for the 49ers. But if it's the Lions, I just think that story
That's
is
a great
so
story.
much better than the NFL gifted the Chiefs the third Super Bowl in the last 4 years.
It's interesting because he mentioned I can't root for anybody in the division. And I get that because I don't like the Bears. I don't like the Packers. But the Lions, they've had such a tragic, I mean, it's been 32 years since they've even been to the playoffs. It would be a great story with the Lions. My buddy, Dave Fiala, his cousin, Rick Kane, played for the Lions back in the 70s and 80s.
Didn't he hold a record for him?
He held a record for most fumbles ever by a Lion running back. So
that's awesome.
That's funny. But he lived in Nebraska, and then their family moved to Oregon. I think he played for Oregon. But then in the NFL, he played for the Detroit Lions, Rick Kane.
Nice.
But that's his cousin. So it's kind of a cool story. So I'm rooting for my buddies, Lions.
I'm rooting
even
for the
though
Lions because Donovan Raiola spent his entire career there, and he was the only guy worth playing in the NFL that was on a lot of those teams.
Didn't Schlesinger play there briefly?
Yeah, Corey was there
Corey
for a while
Schlesinger
too, yeah.
briefly. I'm trying to think of other Husker famous.
Well, and Dominic Sue spent
Sue
8 years of his career.
Adrian Martinez tried out for them.
Yeah. Isn't he playing in the UFL now?
I don't
Did he
know
sign
where
with the
he
team?
is now. I don't know.
Well, no, he was interning here at Nebraska, but I thought he signed a contract with one of the UFL teams.
Yeah, Dominic Raiola. That's the reason I'm going to cheer for the Lions.
There you go.
I'm going to get to break. I definitely know that. Fun show. Mike Melby, Tom Stevens. We do it every week. Husker Rewind. Next hour, we're going to talk to the legend, the Hall of Famer, Jay Foreman, 9 years in the NFL, get his take on what he's seen today in the NFL and talk a little Husker football and Husker hoops as well. Got to get to break right now. Tom Stevens, Mike Melby, more after this.
Shopping for new flooring is different today. Getting your questions answered, making the right selection, getting the best value, and installed quickly and professionally. Visit ostreetcarpet.com or shop our store. We'll answer all your questions and help you make the right choice. You'll be enjoying your new floor in just days for less than you'd pay elsewhere. Carpet, vinyl, wood, laminate, tile, and area rugs. We've got it all.
O Street Carpet.
1732 O Street. Family owned and operated. Always the best value.
Get all of your favorite restaurants delivered with VenueDelivered.com. One place for ordering delicious appetizers, refreshing salads, hot entrees, fresh sandwiches, and more. From Venue Restaurant and Lounge, Piedmont Bistro, and all Lincoln Good Sense Subs locations. Download our phone app to earn rewards on all of your carryout and delivery orders. Available on Apple and Android, just search for the Pillar Restaurants app. That's the Pillar Restaurants app. Download today.
Warning, this ad will use the F word often, so listen at your own risk. Family fun, fun with friends, freedom from fuel, free Yeti cooler, free driveway delivery. Hey, this is Carl from Nebraska Golf Carts and Price Right Auto, and we have the all-electric Bentelli Fun Carts, and they are a blast. Plenty of fun colors, and these street-legal carts come with both 4 and 6 passenger. Tell us you heard us on the ticket and get a free Yeti cooler with your purchase. Hurry, supply is limited. Check them out at 1235 West O in Lincoln or NebraskaGolfCarts.com.
You don't think about your roof very often, but you should never take it for granted. Roofing Service Company takes every measure to provide you with the highest quality roofing solution. Whether it's a new roof installation, roof repair, or a re-roofing project, their overall goal is to provide you with a pleasant experience and a long-lasting roof. If you have a need for siding or gutters, they're your place too. Visit roofingservicecompany.com for more info today.
Repeat after me. I will not touch the fuse box.
I will probably not touch the fuse box.
Sip, do you remember what happened last time?
Yeah, I remember.
What happened?
Half of the city block lost power.
And?
My chicken condo went haywire.
That's right. The chickens ran wild. So what do we do instead?
Call Joe at Ambition Electric and let him handle everything. Look, saved on speed dial.
Ambition Electric, 402-217-3415 or online at ambitionelectric.com.
Live from the heart of Lincoln, America, welcome to Ticket Weeknights on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back. Tom Stevens, Mike Melby, Husker Rewind every Sunday, 5 to 7. Always fun to talk to Brian Christopherson and Husker Hoops. We talk a lot of Husker football with him as well, and he'll definitely be back before the Husker basketball season is over. You mentioned NIL, and we talked about NIL, and I wonder how much Nebraska is going to be a beneficiary of NIL going forward. It's been a really good offseason. I mean, in fact, the best offseason that I can remember in a while for recruiting. Now, Scott Frost had some really good 4-stars and brought in some really good recruiting classes. And then I think COVID hit. He lost a lot of his Florida class. But this has been good. Obviously, the momentum of Dylan Raiola has really helped because it led to the recruitment of a running back that you finally got.
Dante Dowdell.
Dante Dowdell. You get, I thought the Micah Mazuka thing was bigger than some people realize, and that kind of came out of nowhere. You get Stephen Thompson, the linebacker. I think he transferred from
Syracuse.
From Syracuse.
Played for Tony White.
Jamal Banks, who's already apparently developed a little bit of a chemistry with Dylan Raiola.
Forrest,
And you get Isaiah Nayor as well, the wide receiver transfer from Texas. That's pretty good. You get 2 wide receivers. You get a marquee running back, I think. You get a really good offensive guard, one of the better offensive guards in the SEC, transfer from Florida. And a lot of it, let's face it, was done because Nebraska can pay players now.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is, and as soon as you said NIL, it reminded me what we briefly talked about before the show. I laughed and I said, evidently San Jose State's NIL package wasn't quite as good as Nevada, because one of the things I forgot to put in the kickoff is Chubba Purdy is now going to Nevada to play for the Wolfpack instead of playing for the Spartans of San Jose State. He changed his mind.
He's one that I really wish would have stayed, because I do think that you're going to see Nebraska go out and get a quarterback after spring football. By the way, that was announced April 27th, spring game,
11 a.m.
11 a.m. kick on the BTN network, I believe. I think that's going to hurt Nebraska a little bit.
Why?
Just because I think if you had a 1 o'clock kick, it gives players a little more time to get in here, enjoy the atmosphere, go out to dinner, get up, maybe not at 4, really early. I don't love the 11 a.m. or the 7 a.m. tailgate. And let's face it, Husker fans will tailgate at 7 a.m. even for the spring game. I think a 1 o'clock kick gives you more time to prepare the athletes and take them around campus. And
you're talking recruiting.
I'm talking recruiting. The spring game, let's face it, it's a glorified scrimmage. It doesn't mean anything.
I'll argue last year's spring game, granted it was a glorified scrimmage, but
8 turnovers.
It was a glorified scrimmage where they were getting after each other opposed to
that was the first one. I think this does have the potential to be a sellout because of the Dylan Raiola factor. I think you could get 92,000 people. I just wish if it were 1 o'clock, you'd have more people, more of a chance for people to come, that are 4 hours away within the state.
I get it, but I also think that the thought process that went into this, and I think Nebraska probably had some say with BTN on when this game was going to be scheduled. Yeah. Trev Alberts trended into a day of celebrating Nebraska athletics as well, because there's going to be a baseball and a softball game later in the same day.
Right.
And at Bowling.
There was a conflict there. Yeah, and they didn't want to bleed into those. But I think football just trumps all of those things.
Well, I get it, but I guess if kicking off your spring game 2 hours early is going to cost you a recruit, maybe that recruit doesn't want to come here in the first place. I see what you're talking about.
I don't think it's going to cost them anything.
It is going to be more difficult to get them here. But
I think it's a bunch of different things. It's not just recruiting. I think the fans really it puts you in a bind. If you're in North Platte, you have to get in the car really early to make an 11 a.m. kickoff. Or, you come on down earlier Friday night before. That's certainly possible as well. I just think ideally 1 o'clock would have been better. That's just my opinion. But it all works out. And that Matt Rule will work around it and make it a success. He'll make it an advantage because everything he touches seems to turn to gold anyway.
Well,
and that's where I go back to NIL. I just think they've done a good job. Dylan Raiola certainly helped. I would have liked to have seen him commit 4 months earlier just to build the recruiting class, but it all worked out pretty well.
I'll tell you what, though. I thought about that, and I agree to a point. But go back to that weekend in March when Dylan was in town and he's throwing the bones at PBA. The majority of the guys that were there when he was there committed anyway.
Yeah.
And the point that I heard someone make, and I don't remember if it was Shafe, if it was BC, SIP, could have been any of them. Him not committing until last minute means we got guys that they want to play at Nebraska, to play at Nebraska, to play for Coach Rule and their position coach, to play for this fan base. And then 12th hour, oh, by the way, you get the best quarterback in the high school recruiting class. It's going to be your classmate. I think that makes that a little bit more beneficial, because you didn't have guys that came to Nebraska only to play with Dylan Raiola. They came to Nebraska because they wanted to be here regardless of who was here.
Yep.
So that's and I don't want to make that a spin on it, but I'm not as upset with how it all played out. It was an interesting story to follow, to be honest. And you and I have been in broadcasting and covering sports, et cetera, for long enough. We find ourselves rooting for the best story a lot. And Mike Schaefer, if you have not seen it yet, of Husker 24/7 chronicles the last essentially 2 years of the Dylan Raiola recruitment by Nebraska in a story that was released earlier today, and it is a fantastic read.
I'll go read it. I have not read it yet.
Yeah, one of the rumors that I had heard from people in the business was true. Ultimately, evidently, it's not true.
Okay.
And read the story, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it is a fantastic story by Mike Schaefer.
By the way, they're not done recruiting even for the 2024 class. Kiana Wilhite, I don't believe any relation to Kenny Wilhite, former recruiter, recruiting coordinator, I believe for walk-ons at Nebraska. But decommit from Oregon has visited Nebraska, and I think is going to visit Texas as well. Big outside linebacker / defensive end type, 6'4", 220, 230. He would be a good get for the 2024 class.
Absolutely.
They're always recruiting. And you wonder how they're going to make it work. It seems like they're way over their number, but NIL, again, makes it possible.
It does, and we'll see how things shake out after spring. My guess is you're going to see, and this is an uneducated kind of little bit of knowledge and gut feeling, but I think you're going to see anywhere between 8 and 12 leave the program after spring, whether it's medical, but they stay on scholarship.
Somebody's got to leave. They're over.
Yeah, I don't know that there's that big of a pile of NIL money, because you're talking, 15 to 18 guys that you're going to have to come up with tuition and books and everything else. Oh, and pay them something because everybody else is getting paid.
And because of Title IX, you can't be at the same number range that you used to be at 150. You've got to be more around 120.
You and I will never be a college football coach, but if I'm a head coach at Nebraska and Matt Rule, I really would not want my roster size bigger than about 125.
Yeah, I think 120 is perfect.
Yeah.
125. Now, T.O. would probably come back and say, no, I really liked having 200 in some cases.
That's good for you, but I don't think that's healthy these days.
I think in today's day and age, 120, 130 is fine. That's more than enough. Let's get the break. Come back with more. Mike Melby, Tom Stevens, Husker Rewind, every Sunday, 5 to 7.
Sandhills Global is hiring. Check out sandhills.jobs for more information. Sandhills is looking to fill hundreds of new openings in sales, traveling support, software development, web design, and more. Sandhills has a professional culture and is fast-paced with a focus on growth, innovation, and leading-edge technologies. Career and internship opportunities are available at our global headquarters in Lincoln, Nebraska. Apply today at sandhills.jobs.
It's football season, and that means coaches everywhere are busy making game plans. I'm Matt Knipe with Liberty Law Group. Teams make game plans because no two opponents are the same. At Liberty Law, we understand that no two cases are the same. Whether facing a DUI, criminal charge, or you were injured and it wasn't your fault, we tailor our legal game plan to meet your unique needs. We are relentless trial attorneys serving all of Nebraska. To learn more, go to libertylawnebraska.com. That's libertylawnebraska.com.
What would you tell a friend who was on the fence about going to Limitless Mail?
I would tell them to go to Limitless today. Don't hesitate. You're going to second guess yourself on if it's the right decision. The staff there is amazing. The treatments work. I'm living proof that it can completely change your life for the better.
Join thousands of men who have changed their lives with testosterone treatment. Slow down the aging process and live life. Schedule your free consult at limitlessmail.com.
Live from the heart of Lincoln, America. Welcome to Ticket Weeknights on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back to Husker Rewind here on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. You can follow along online on the Starter Heyman live stream on Twitch, on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, or on Allo Channel 961. And all of our guests join us on the Allo VIP line, exceptional service with local heart. That is Allo Fiber. And before we jump into the Big Ten Blitz, by the way, that's Tom Stevens.
Hello.
He is a legend, not only in his own mind, but he's just unbelievably talented.
Yeah.
Young man that's, well, he's pretty good looking too. I give you that, man. You look good for your age.
Well, I'm 85
impressive.
years old.
Well, I know. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
But before we dive into the Big Ten Blitz, I want to give a shout out. And this is one of those, like, we get to do ad libs and all that type of stuff. And I don't know if it's going to get back to her or not, but I'm going to do it anyway. There's a gal named Shelly at the Calvert Salon, and she is the only one that I have trusted to do anything with my hair in the last 4 years. Mm-hmm. And it's to the point where it's getting too long. So yesterday I went in and I cut about 5 or 6 inches off, had her cut 5 or 6 inches off, and it was still too long. And then
you
a
used
little
to
bit more.
give your hair to like Locks of Love.
And I
stuff.
didn't plan on getting to the minimum of 10 inches of that. And so ultimately I think we wound up cutting about 9, almost 10 off. But she does an amazing job. I'm just, like I said,
Nice.
there's nothing. I'm just doing this free of charge or free of whatever, because
you have more than your share of hair.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
not unruly
fair.
and it's difficult to take care of. And here's the funny thing. I go in, I got no split ends. You know why? Because of the stuff she suggested for me to buy. So just saying.
Let's get to the Blitz.
The Big Ten Blitz. The Big Ten Blitz. The Big Ten Blitz. The Big Ten Blitz.
Northwestern had a really good week. They beat Illinois in overtime at home earlier this week, 96-91 in Evanston. They shot 55% in that game, 61% from three-point range. And you mentioned that's going to be a tough win for Nebraska on the road. I really am scared of Northwestern on the road. They played a couple of different times. They also had a win over Ohio State. That one at home. They improved to 15-5, 6-3 in the league. Ohio State drops to 13-7 and 3-6 in the lead. In the league, I should say. 83-58 the win. Boo Buie, 19 points. He moves to third all-time on the Northwestern scoring list. They shot 50% in that game, 57% actually, and 10 of 19 from three. They're really, really going to be a tough out, I think, for the rest of the season. Ohio State now has Illinois. That's probably going to be a loss. They host them on Tuesday. Northwestern is at Purdue on Wednesday.
Interesting. Now, speaking of Purdue, the number 2 ranked Boilermakers were in competition in Piscataway earlier today. Purdue comes away with a 68-60 win. Reigning college basketball player of the year, Zach Edey of Purdue, wasn't overly excited about either scoring his 2,000th career point or becoming the 6th player in Big Ten Conference history to have 2,000 points and 1,000 boards. He called it kind of cool and just another accomplishment. I think obviously his mental frame and focus is on March and ending March without losing a game.
Yeah.
I think they're way too soft to do it, but who knows? We'll see what happens.
He's going to win back-to-back big national player
of the year.
He's going to be national player of the year
with good reason.
Yeah.
Purdue 19-2 overall, 8-2 in the conference. Rutgers falls to 10-9 and 2-6 in the conference. Coming up next, as you mentioned, Purdue hosts Northwestern and Rutgers hosts Penn State. Both those games on Wednesday.
Illinois earlier this week over Indiana. They beat them 70-62. That game was tied at 62 with 1:29 left in the game. Terrence Shannon had then hit 6 free throws in a row. In that Northwestern game earlier in the week, the crowd kept shouting, "No means no." He's going to have some interesting things to deal with crowds throughout the league, but he is a really good basketball player. Marcus Damas also had 16 points, 10 rebounds. Lucas Good and Coleman Hawkins both had 11 points each. And now Indiana will host Iowa, who's suddenly playing some pretty good basketball on Tuesday. Illinois is at Ohio State also on Tuesday.
Well, going down that road, I think I'm going to go ahead and catch you up in a little Big Ten Blitz action on the Iowa Hawkeyes and their game against Michigan in Ann Arbor yesterday. Iowa comes away with a win, 88-78. Peyton Sandfort scores 26. Tony Perkins adds 24 for the 10-point win on the road by the Hawkeyes. Iowa now 12-8, 4-5 in the conference. Michigan falls to 7-13, 2-7 in the conference. 21 points scored in the second half by Peyton Sandfort. And Iowa's starting to play a little bit better basketball. They were one that I guess a lot of people were kind of saying, yeah, this isn't a traditional Iowa team. They're probably not going to make even the NIT, or that's going to be at best. But McCafferty's got them rolling. Scoring 88 on the road is not a bad thing. And next up for Iowa, as you mentioned, they play at Indiana on Tuesday.
Minnesota over Penn State. They improved to 13-7 on the year, 4-5 in the league. That was at Penn State. Penn State had a 17-point lead, or actually a 14-point lead and blew it. I was thinking of Nebraska's lead versus Minnesota. Very similar. This one, though, at home, Penn State had a big lead and blew it. Dawson Garcia, 20 points for the North Carolina transfer. Cam Christie had 17 points. Minnesota, as I mentioned, down 14 points at half, comes back to win it. Minnesota will host Northwestern on Saturday. Penn State is at Rutgers on Wednesday.
That's about kind of the extent, I think, of the Big Ten Blitz, unless you've got another game you want to toss in.
I want to mention Wisconsin over Michigan State. That was on Friday. Wisconsin improves to 16-4 overall, 8-1 in the league, the 13th ranked team in the country. It was actually a little closer than that, but A.J. Storr, 28 points. He was really good. Stephen Krull, 15 points, and Wisconsin has won 9 of their last 10. Their only loss in that span, a loss on the road to Penn State. Wisconsin might be the best team in the league. I'm not sure. Pick between Purdue and Wisconsin. Wisconsin has the better in-conference record, but they're really, really good. They do have a 1-game lead on Purdue in the conference. It'll be interesting to see who wins that. They did a good job on Tyson Walker. He was held to only 11 points for Michigan State in that game. Michigan State will host Michigan on Tuesday. Wisconsin, of course, at Nebraska this Thursday.
Yeah, and I think you got to give the edge to the Boilermakers over Wisconsin. I get it. They've lost 2. They were both on the road. I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting. The thing that I think is going to tell me more about Wisconsin-Purdue is Thursday night's game against Nebraska for Bucky Badger.
Yeah.
If they come in and, Nebraska's reeling, licking their wounds to the point where they don't bounce back, which would be completely out of the ordinary based on what we've seen this year. If they come in and walk away with a double-digit win here in Lincoln, I'm going to probably change my rankings next week.
You have Purdue number 1
I still
right
have
now?
Purdue number 1.
I do too.
Wisconsin, for as good as they are, and they're a great team, Purdue's got a great team, and they also, by the way, have Zach Edey. So that's my top 2, hands down. I think Illinois is an easy third. And then after that, put Rutgers and Michigan in a bag and just sit them on the back porch.
Yeah.
And you literally could take, and maybe even Penn State, but then you can take Ohio State, Minnesota, Michigan State, Iowa, Indiana, Nebraska, Maryland, Northwestern, and who knows?
I've got Purdue number 1, Wisconsin number 2, Illinois number 3, just like you. I think Northwestern's the 4th best team in this conference.
Same here.
They're very, very good. They can really shoot.
Who do you have at 5?
Well, I've got Maryland over Nebraska, but if that game were played in Lincoln, you got to think that Nebraska probably would have won it. As bad as they played on the road in Landover, they would have beaten probably Maryland at home. But I got Maryland at 5 just because they beat Nebraska. 6 Nebraska, 7 Indiana, Iowa, Michigan State, Minnesota, all tied at 7.
I like it.
And then at 8, I've got Ohio State, 9 Penn State and Rutgers, and then Michigan's the worst team in the league.
Yeah, that's literally almost verbatim what mine is, which is really surprising. Normally, you and I have got them all switched around, and I know I'm a big Michigan State believer simply because I've seen Tom Izzo do it for so many years. But I don't know, man. They're still sitting at 4-5 in the league, 12-8 overall. But
do you think they make the tournament, Michigan State?
Right now, I would say they're probably one of the first 8 teams out.
You got to think that Izzo, by the way, is sitting at 699, 1 game short of 700. He's at 699 right now. I just think every year he finds a way to get to the tournament, so why wouldn't he?
Well, number 700 will happen on Tuesday.
Who do they have?
They host Michigan.
Oh, that's a bad basketball team. It's hard for me to believe that Juwan Howard will be the coach next year.
Yeah, same here.
I know he's had his health problems, so you can't completely blame him.
Yeah.
But Michigan expects – that's a team that's won a national title, and it had some really good teams even recently. It's been – the Juwan Howard era has been disappointing, to say the least, overall.
Yeah, but why did people have big expectations for Juwan Howard?
Because he came from the NBA.
Great,
and it almost never works.
Where did he coach at that he had success before as a head coach?
He didn't.
There you go.
But
why is it a surprise that he's not doing a great job?
I think it was kind of like the Patrick Ewing hire at
What
Georgetown.
about Penny Hardaway at Memphis? I mean, flash in the pan a couple of years, and he's a great recruiter, but why did you think he's going to be the end-all, be-all of coaches?
Well, he wasn't. He isn't, at least at this point.
That's my point. So, I don't know, man. I think Izzo's going to get to 701 pretty quickly, too, because then on February 3rd, they've got Maryland at home. So,
that would put them at 14-8, and that gets you started toward the
like
NCAA
you said, right now,
tournament.
I would put them first 8 out. I don't think maybe they're 5th or 6th out right now.
Well, they do have they certainly have a top 5 player in the league in Tyson Walker. He's not the best player. Certainly Zach Edey is that. But Tyson Walker's really good, and Izzo's the best coach in the league. It's just hard for me to believe that they'll be left out when it's all said and done of the NCAA tournament. When it comes to Nebraska, we talked about a little bit about this with BC. They have Wisconsin this Thursday. Wisconsin, Purdue, pick your favorite. I think Wisconsin's actually played better basketball overall, and they have the best record in the conference. They're one loss to Penn State. But they absolutely dominated Michigan State this weekend on Friday. They've got Nebraska on Thursday. But if Nebraska can find a way to win that game, I think you're not going to beat Illinois on the road. And I don't think you're going to beat Northwestern. But if you could get that Wisconsin win, you're going to beat Michigan at home. You got Penn State on the road, very winnable. You've got Indiana on the road, winnable. Minnesota at home, certainly a game that they should win. You're at Ohio State. You've got Rutgers at home. You've got Michigan at home. There's certainly, I think, 5 or 6 wins there. That puts
there better be 7 or 8 wins there, because five is not going to get them in.
Well, if one of the wins,
if they're 19 and 12, they are not making the NCAA tournament.
Even if one of them is against Wisconsin.
Yeah. Because if they're 19 and 12, that means that they are going to finish 9 and 11 in the league. They are not getting in the tournament.
They're at 15 right now. 5 gets you to 20. That's 5, right? Wisconsin, then Michigan twice, so that's 3. Penn State, say one of your road wins is Penn State. Then Minnesota home, that's 5. That's your 5 wins to get to 20. And then you win one game in the tournament.
Well, I was going to say, they've got to win one in the tournament. So Joe Lunardi's bracketology.
Right, they should beat Rutgers at home, too. I think 6 is very feasible. I don't think you're going to win more than one of the next 3, though. I think Wisconsin, Illinois, Northwestern. Point. You're not going to win one of the next 3 is actually not bad.
Yeah. Well, to BC's point, that's exactly what he's saying. If you can get one of the next 3, you're sitting there at 6 and 7. Let the end of the season play out because it's relatively favorable from a schedule standpoint. So Lunardi's bracketology, the last update of this was prior to this weekend's games. Yeah. It was on Friday. So the Maryland loss is not here. But he had Nebraska as a 9 seed playing Texas Tech in the eastern swath of the bracket. As far as teams that are on Nebraska's schedule or have been that are kind of in this mix of that bubble that we're talking about, he's got Northwestern as one of the last 4 byes, and he has Kansas State as one of the first 4 out. Wow. I think that's really interesting because that, to me, that K-State game looms even bigger. Now, we've talked about how the losses have loomed and how they may come back and bite Nebraska. But at the same time, that K-State game with them, being in that bubble, one of the first 4 out, they sneak a win or 2 they should not. All of a sudden, that turns into a higher profile quad 2 win, or if they get on a bit of a run and they're all of a sudden a 9 seed.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit bigger of a feather in the cap of Fred Hoiberg and the team. But, key thing for them, to me, they've got to get to a minimum of 21 wins in the regular season And I think they've got to win to BC's point, they've got to win a couple of games on the road. You've got to prove you can win outside of your own arena.
If you were to pick an MVP for me, an MVP for Nebraska basketball, who would it be? It would have been on Tuesday.
CJ Wilcher.
I would say the exact same thing, and he doesn't even start.
Yeah.
14 points again. He plays consistently well. I thought he would against Maryland because that's where he's from. That's his area. Rink Mask, you would say at times, but certainly at times not. Casey has struggled as of late.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Casey, I mean, the ankle injury, I'm sure, set him back at the beginning of the season. But this is not the Casey Tominaga that we expected. He's had like 2 games of the what we expected him to be. And I think, I'll be honest with you, there's still rest of the year still here. I think he's his resume for the NBA that he's laying out this year is pointing to him playing in Japan next year.
He's I never thought he was an NBA player. I think if he ever had ambitions to play in the NBA, he would have to be a point guard. I just don't think 6'1" and maybe even 6 foot off guards work well in the NBA.
It's still one of the best guys I would pay money to watch him play, no matter who he's playing for, man. He's fun and exciting to watch.
He's been
it's weird the lack of consistency over the course of the season. And like I said, man, that ankle sprain though, those things come back and bite you. You get just that tiny little bit of tweak, and then you get that little bit of pain. And if it gets into the back of your mind when you're playing, that was such an unfortunate thing to happen in an exhibition game.
The Lions were up 14-0. Christian McCaffrey just scores, makes it 14-7. San Francisco back in it with 13:49 left to go in the second quarter. Let's talk to the Hall of Famer.
I think that's a good idea.
I would guess that he's rooting against the Chiefs because the Chiefs just beat his Buffalo Bills last week. So I don't know who's he rooting for. We'll get his takes on the NFL playoffs. The Hall of Famer, Jay Foreman, is up next.
After a long, hot summer, are you ready for fall? What about your home? Is your heating system ready for cooler temperatures ahead? Be sure and call Bryant for your fall heating check. No matter what brand of equipment you own, Bryant's trained technician will thoroughly clean and inspect your furnace or heat pump to make sure you stay warm and comfortable. Call today to schedule your home heating check. 467-1111. Bryant Air Conditioning, Heating, Electrical, and Plumbing. 467-1111. We do whatever it takes.
So, I just got the State Farm Personal Price Plan on my car insurance.
So you told your agent you play the bagpipes for your dog?
What? No, I didn't get that personal. My agent just helped me create an affordable price just for me. Okay, let me show you what I've been working on. Hey, Buster!
Call your local State Farm agent, Vinny Krekak, at 402-474-1173.
Prices vary by state. Options selected by customer. Availability and eligibility may vary.
It takes a great game plan to win a football game each week, and right now, it's time to plan a trip to get a new car at Mullen Motors. Just like on the football field, there's a wall of defense on the way to Mullen Motors. 48th Street is under construction from Layton all the way to Cornhusker Highway. But the lot at Mullen Motors is full of tons of great vehicles to drive home this fall for the ultimate touchdown. Mullen Motors, still open through road construction at 48th and Walker.
No taglines, just quality vehicles. Mullen Motors.
If you struggle with joint pain, there's good news. You don't need surgery to get back to full health. South Point Medical and Aesthetics offers breakthrough non-surgical options for treatment of moderate to severe joint pain. Our patients experience little to no downtime from our procedures, and the results are remarkable. They've had 14 years of successful treatments with patients from 35 states because of an effective word-of-mouth traffic. Learn more about how you can get lasting results for joint pain today at southpointmedical.com or call 402-323-8400. Brown Shoe Fit has all types of shoes for you to excel this fall. Check out their large variety of tennis shoes and dress shoes in brands like Brooks, Hoka, Merrell, On, and many more. Browns has the local professionals to get the proper fit, aided by their high-tech foot scanner by Atrex. Stop by Brown Shoe Fit today, just south of 66th and Q in Lincoln, or check out their options online at brownshoefitco.com.
Allo is turning 20 this year, and we plan to celebrate all year long. Since 2003, Allo has vowed to put customers first and deliver a drastically different experience. No matter where you live, work, or play, we believe you deserve an affordable, secure, and reliable connection. We're proud to have served our businesses and residents with seriously fast fiber optic service for 2 decades. Thank you for trusting Allo as your local internet, phone, and TV provider. Follow us on social media to know about the 20th anniversary celebrations in all our Allo communities.
Summer is winding down, but there's no reason to put your golf clubs away. Double Eagle Golf makes golf leagues and events possible year-round. Sign up today for 9-hole leagues this fall, any day from Monday to Friday, starting on September 25th. Check out their deals on monthly memberships and schedule your Husker watch parties, birthday or bachelor parties, corporate and team outings, or just a good old Saturday with the boys. That's all at Double Eagle Golf inside the Kinetic Sports Complex on West O Street. Call today at 402-742-0140.
Welcome back. Tom Stevens, Mike Melby, Husker Rewind every Sunday, 5 to 7, as we welcome in the Hall of Famer, Jay Foreman. 9 years, or how many years? I think it was 9 in the NFL. Played for the Bills. I think he played 1 year with the 49ers. But so does that mean you're rooting for the 49ers against the Lions today?
I don't consider it like it was a pit stop, man. I was there for like 8 weeks, but I like Detroit. You know, one of my good friends, Aaron Glenn, is the defensive coordinator. So I would say I'm pulling for Detroit, but if I was a betting man, I think the 49ers are going to win.
Jay, let's talk about. I want to jump into some NFL stuff just from earlier today, and a little bit on a legacy side of things. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is building his legacy and some of the plays he makes, et cetera, regardless of my disdain for the Chiefs and how they seem to get every call these days. But Lamar Jackson is a guy that is so exciting. He is so fun to watch, and it's crunch time today, and he makes a couple of plays that don't write a really great legacy for him. What does he have to do to change the narrative, or what are your thoughts on how he has ended seasons so far in his career in the NFL?
Yeah, I think that this year, oddly enough, he ended on a high note. You know, was strong, and he had that. Again, I forget who it was that beat. Maybe it's the Dolphins that beat San Francisco. They beat him up pretty. He played phenomenally down the stretch. And then today, just kind of I guess the quote unquote playoff Lamar. But I don't think it all falls at his feet, right? I think that starting off the game, I felt like they were able to run the ball pretty effectively against the Chiefs and went away from it. Like, I don't know why. And you're not going to just run over the Chiefs, but you can systematically wear them down, right? And then defensively, they started a little slow, and then caught their rhythm. You got to think they pretty much only gave up 17 points. You got to be able to score some points. And then I felt like also the offensive coordinator didn't call a very effective game. And the only reason I say that from a defensive standpoint, he was very predictable. A lot of shots down the field. They could have very easily just watched what Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid did and copied that and did very well, because they did it kind of towards the end, even on the drive that he got the interception in the end zone that he threw in the triple coverage, which was pass interference before the ball got there. So you're right about the calls with the Chiefs, but the Chiefs, I think their experience paid dividends. I felt like their defense was a little bit sharper. And you got Patrick Mahomes who is motivated and wants to prove that he can get back to the Super Bowl and not only, get back there, but win. And, Kansas City is a hot team right now. It's crazy. As bad as they looked at times this year offensively, they're over the last month, or last 4 games, they are playing efficient football on the offensive side of the ball, and they seem to be getting better. And I do not understand like this. And this is where I know for a fact that the coaching isn't very good in the NFL, and the players' acumen is not very good. If you go back to like a few years ago when the Chiefs were down to the Bills, and it was essentially Patrick Mahomes was throwing it to Travis Kelce, and this is even with Tyreek Hill. You know where he's going. I don't even think they had an incompletion today. After about 8 passes in a row or 8 passes that he catches, you should probably think about double teaming him and maybe mixing up your coverages. And every time he needed to play, he went to Patrick Mahomes. And so, as great as they are, which they're obviously 2 first ballot Hall of Famers and will be in the conversation of being one of the better players ever in their position, rightfully so. The defense of the Ravens, that was, quite frankly, supposed to be the best in the league today, did not show up, especially at home, against a team that they felt like they should have beat.
I hope the conversation isn't about Lamar, the MVP, playing poorly today. Yeah, he had the 1 pick, but if Zay Flowers gets in the end zone, I think that's a different game. And they probably beat the Chiefs. I didn't think the Chiefs played overly well. What'd you make of the pregame stuff? I don't know if you heard about, Travis Kelce kicking Justin Tucker out of his area and like picking up the ball and throwing. Is that something you remember happening in pregames when you were playing in the league?
Not really. I'm sure it happened. There was a little, you guarded the 50-yard line pretty good with the, when we played the Dolphins or when the Raiders came in, but, didn't really, none of that stuff going on. But that's gamesmanship. That's the, the defending Super Bowl champion that it feel like they're being disrespected in some form or fashion, marking their territory. It didn't matter where they were at. And I don't think it had anything to do with the game, but I definitely felt like the Chiefs were trying to play with an edge. Now, I felt like the Chiefs were more strategic with it, and I think it was part of their game plan to try to get the Baltimore Ravens to get out of their mindset or framework, and then get, they drew a taunting penalty with Flowers. They had Travis Van Noy got the shove on Kelce. The second guy always gets caught, and there was a couple other ones as well. And so, that's just the experience of the Chiefs. And that's just part of the game. And that's a learning experience for this Ravens team. They'll be back because they got if you want to say the second best weapon in the league and Patrick Mahomes being number 1, they're definitely going to be back. Now, there's things that they need to do that's simply been plaguing them throughout Lamar's career. Is you have to be able to play to his strengths when it's money time. Stop trying to make him into a duel with Patrick Mahomes. You should have been some bootlegs, some rollouts, change in the pocket, flat curl 7, some crossing routes and stuff like that. And along with, sticking to the running game in any fashion. So, for Baltimore, they faced a team that was hot, and they faced a coach and a player and a whole team, but a coach and a player in Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes that you have to beat them. They are not going to give you the game. And that's what makes them so hard to beat. That's what made Tom Brady so hard to beat. When Patrick Mahomes needs to be a quote-unquote game manager, he does. And then when he needs to, go for the dagger in the heart like he did to Scantling there, he'll do it. And he has enough confidence now in his defense to where he can take more calculated shots like that under pressure. And Andy Reid believes in what Spagnuolo and those guys are doing on defense as well.
Husker Hall of Famer and co-host of Old School here on 93.7 The Ticket, Jay Foreman, joining us on the Allo VIP line, brought to you by Allo Fiber, exceptional service with local heart. Jay, I want to ask you a little bit about the head coach of one of those guys you just mentioned. You said Tom Brady, guy that gets it done. Bill Belichick, I thought, would be one of the most sought-after head coaching candidates in the NFL. It seems as though that's not the case. Are you surprised by what seems to be the lack of interest in him and the fact that he may not coach next year?
Not really. I mean, I think you know what it is. He's so successful and he's done it one way that people are like, have that in their building, and it could be a turnoff. So it's like you're so successful, they know you're not going to be able to replicate that, right? Because there's only one Tom Brady that ever graced the NFL field. And so obviously you see that's a big part of it. And with Bill Belichick, he generally brings his crew with him, and takes over the organization. And sometimes depending on who's interviewing him and upper management and ownership, that's not what they want. Because right now you've seen a lot of coaches that can connect with players along with be very demanding. And Bill Belichick, obviously if you listen to Danny Amendola, it was a very workplace type environment. And that's what probably doesn't really work. And then also you think, where he interviewed at, with Atlanta, if it didn't happen early, it wasn't going to happen at all. the last two teams, Seattle and the Commanders, obviously they're waiting this long. They have their eyes on or have a deal somewhat in place for a coordinator, or they would already hire their coach. And so, I think Bill Belichick could be in somebody's studio. And then when a team realizes they need a true leader, he'll be there. I wouldn't have been surprised if he ended up in Philly. And he might just be there in another year or two. So he'll coach again. Let's get that straight. I am surprised also that, DP, talked about the Commanders, trying to, right the ship, but they have a very young GM that they just got from the 49ers. So he's going to replicate kind of what they did with the coordinator and Kyle Shanahan, and probably get Johnson here from the Detroit Lions. So, it's not a foregone conclusion that the best coaches are going to get hired. You got to think, it's not only Bill Belichick, Mike Vrabel is out there as well, who is definitely young enough to connect with players. But sometimes, your longevity and I wouldn't say your reputation, but your winning reputation sometimes works against you, which is the weirdest thing ever. You should want to have a winner in your organization, because he will help you 10 times more than just the wins and losses, right? It'll be how you go about your everyday business, how you treat people, so forth and so on. Yeah. And so, I think a lot of these guys that are making these hires are trying to look for the next great, I guess, McVay or, whoever, you know what I mean? These guys, and a lot of times they'll have to double back around, tail between their leg, and then next thing you know, they got to hire like a Bill Belichick or Mike Vrabel or somebody like that. And then, and then they just have wasted, sometimes 2 or 3 years, however long before they fire them. The sad part about this is sometimes it's collateral damage. And the collateral damage is, say like a guy in my position, like I'm in his 6th, 7th year or something like that. And, the end is, within say 2, 3, maybe 4 years. And then next thing you know, you get caught up in the wash and they bring in a new coach. If you brought in a veteran coach that really is trying to win, that then you kind of can extend your career. Otherwise, then sometimes you're sitting at the house on the couch, and you're wanting to get back in, and then you don't get back in.
I would think if he wants to get back in, he'll get back in. We'll see on Bill Belichick, talking with the Hall of Famer, Nebraska Hall of Famer, spent 9 years in the NFL and co-host of Old School, Jay Foreman. You were involved in the recruitment of Dylan Raiola, and I'm sure others under Matt Rule, and he thanked you at the press conference on signing day. It's good to have players involved. How much do you expect that to continue to go forward, to use former players to help recruit?
I think listen, I didn't do much. I've been knowing Dylan and Dom since, we've been in college. And like I said, our dads went to college together. So there's a history of connection and I love Dom like a brother, and Dylan and Dayton and his whole family are just family to me. So, it would be odd if I didn't help and try to, and it's an unbiased opinion. I feel like Dylan has a tremendous opportunity to, get Nebraska back to respectability. And then that would create a lifelong legacy, things that I wasn't, and his dad weren't coming to college with I wouldn't say with a clear pathway and an easier pathway to reach those, right? Because when we played, it's national championship or bust. Well, we won so many national championships. You're just a part of the machine that kept going. And so it was a little bit harder to differentiate yourself. Now, when you're the quarterback, number one recruit, so forth and so on, you have the big flip, probably one of the bigger flips in the last 5-10 years. And that's it. But I think, Matt Rule and those guys are trying to recruit the best players in the state of Nebraska or wherever it may be. They got Ken Clark's kid, I think, coming from Idaho, I think, or somewhere like that. He's here. He's a great athlete. You had, he talked to, I think, at least what I gathered, he talked to Abdul Muhammad. I know he was bringing down a lot of his kids, and they've offered some. I think Rashawn Jackson has talked to him. Obviously, with Caleb Benning, he had, he's going to talk to Damon as well, and probably was able to get some intel on him. I know they have a, somewhat of a relationship with Steve Warren and stuff like that, or, probably obviously know him. Steve's kids getting recruited. And there's some coming up the pipe. I think Tim Carpenter's son got offered, Brandon Mooberry's son. These are guys that I'll play with and have a, close relationship with, that we talk about the program and talk about the difference between the last regime and the new one with Matt Rule. And I just give my honest opinion. Their family and what they do is more important than anything that I can say. They ask, I answer. I don't offer any advice. But with Dylan and stuff, I felt like it was a great situation, not only for him, and then any way I can help the program first, and then obviously, Dom and Dylan and his family and Donnie as well. I think it's a plus. So, I think Coach Rule and those guys have, it's shown that they can recruit and they'll work at it, and they have an eye for talent or the talent that they like, and they're willing to look at guys if you have suggestions. I don't ever try to be one of those guys, to try to dictate the roster. If they ask, I'm more than willing to help.
Jay Foreman joining us on the Allo VIP line, co-host of Old School with DP, Husker Hall of Famer as well. We haven't talked to you a whole lot, much at all, actually, since the transfer market opened up, and we got quite a few pretty nice little pieces in that transfer portal. What are your thoughts on how the coaching staff did filling some needs here in the last, say, month?
I think they did good. I think, when you look at Jamal Banks and the receiver from Texas, and then obviously you got Dowdell, the running back. You address some needs from, a depth standpoint, and then you got some guys that have played a lot of football, been productive. So that's what you want, right? And they seem like they're good kids that are going to fit into each of those rooms and provide leadership and production without stymieing the development of Johnson in the running back room, or Malachi Coleman, Lloyd, or Doss, or any of the receivers. They're gonna do what's right? They're gonna try to hopefully leave their mark. And then when you get, I think, Mazuka, where he was, I guess, thought that he was going to be a transfer portal guy to Nebraska, last year, I think, or something, like there was a connection. Then obviously the way it came down to the last minute, he chose Florida, had a chance to come back here, and you're getting an SEC starter, and that's great. And then you had Hill, the corner, that's the transfer portal guy who kind of was like in the early early commitment thing. Big long corner. His mom was a Division I player. Dad obviously played in the NFL. Leroy, linebacker as well. He's a sneaky good pickup. So I think they addressed the needs that they needed. And I think they did it through, continue along of looking for what fits what they need. And the one thing I really like is if everything works out well, you address, positions and needs, but then also, obviously we got a young quarterback room, right? You got two freshmen, Daniel Kalen, Dylan Raiola, Hartberg, right? So even if Hartberg rolls out there, he ain't no star. He's not no veteran, right? He's like, Slang, he's not a veteran. So then, so what they did is they addressed areas that they can make anybody that's going to be the starter or plays the transition, the comfort, right? You got a veteran offensive line that's played a lot of football together, right? You got a veteran guy coming in that you assume is going to push for starting position to start at the guard position. You expect Teddy Prohaska to be better, Bryce Benhart keep getting better. You got Turner Corcoran coming back. You got Ben Scott. You got this dude that came in here from Florida. It's a pretty good place. And you feel like the tight end should be better. They have to be better, right? And then you got the depth at receiver, and then you got, Gabe Irvin coming back. You got Johnson, and then you got Dowdell coming in. So then, the running back court, just improved not only from health-wise, which is essentially Gabe Irvin, if he can stay healthy. You got the experience last year with Johnson, and then you bring in Dowdell that's coming in here with next-level talent. And then, obviously with the quarterback room. So to alleviate some of the, choppiness of the offense or, lack of explosive plays, they went out and developed it. And then also they didn't get too far away from their, at least in my opinion, their identity, right? Yeah. They want to be physical. They want playmakers. They want good guys, in the locker room. And I think they got all that the way it looks right now.
Well, yeah. And you add to the fact that they were already a top 20 defense. They added a few pieces there. You just take mild steps, just a couple steps forward on offense. You'd like to think they could win 6, 7, maybe 8 games. The Lions now up 21-7 over the 49ers with about 5:41 left to go in the second quarter. It's hard for me to root for the Packers or the Bears, being a Minnesota Viking fan growing up. I don't feel the same way about the Lions. I'm actually rooting for the Lions, so I hope they can get to the Super Bowl. That'd be an awesome story. Be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, they're legit. I talked to Aaron Glenn. I'm not big to name drop or nothing, but I know what Aaron Glenn's made of. I do know that.
Yeah.
Me and him been through some hard times. And listen, he might be a little dude, but that dude is feisty and he is on point. I just knew what these guys are made of in that locker room. Just for simple of going against Dan Campbell, watching him, listening to his message deeper than the quote that everybody was laughing at. I knew exactly what he was thinking. And then when you got Aaron Glenn and those guys, I knew that these guys, they're not going to go out to San Francisco and lay down. They have nothing to lose.
Yep.
And when you have a team that has nothing to lose and everything to gain, they are dangerous because they have a killer mindset. Now so if they can finish the deal, then not only is it a great story, but that's a team, that's not a team you want to play.
No.
That is not a team that you want to play because they are talented. They've drafted well. They've done everything that Detroit usually didn't do. Right?
Yeah.
Just look at the Bears. I mean, the Chicago Bears are still Chicagoans, and Detroit just found a way through a kind of a quarterback that got disrespected, and he's on the cusp of possibly taking another franchise that is just a few years of past going 0-16 in the NFL.
Yeah, Jared Goff's a great story. Dan Campbell's a great story. The Lions themselves are a great story. Hadn't been to the playoffs for 32 years. If they win the Super Bowl, I think people are a little tired of the Chiefs. I mean, I don't have a problem with the Chiefs, but I think the Lions would be a great story. It'd be so much fun to watch them play in the Super Bowl. Jay, how about the Hall of Famer, spent 9 years in the NFL, and, of course, co-host of Old School. We appreciate the time. Thanks for being on.
No sweat, man. And I always enjoy, talking to you guys, and we'll see how the rest of these games go.
Yep.
All righty. Thanks, Jay.
There you go. Jay Foreman, Nebraska linebacker, won a national championship, played with Dominic Raiola. I thought that was interesting. That, hey, I wasn't pushing anybody on anybody. I just knew Dylan Raiola, known him for a long time. Obviously, he knew Dom very well.
Yeah.
And helped out a little bit in recruiting.
I like his comment where he said, I'm not trying to name drop here with Aaron Glenn.
Yeah.
Just Jay, so tomorrow I'm going to name drop that I was having a conversation about football with Jay Foreman.
Well, he knows a few people in the league. I mean, for crying out loud, his dad is one of the best running backs of all time.
Yeah. Jay's just one of the best people you'd ever want to meet and hang out with.
Yeah.
And we're fortunate enough to know him.
Yeah,
So
we're lucky to have him on. Good conversation with Jay Foreman. Let's get to break and come back with our final segment. Tom Stevens, Mike Melby. It's Husker Rewind every Sunday, 5 to 7.
John Jackson here for Bauer Infrastructure, a veteran-owned local company proudly serving Lincoln, Lancaster County, and the surrounding areas. Bauer provides quality work at an affordable price, and they're growing rapidly. If you want to experience a career with a fast-paced, family-friendly environment, visit BauerInfrastructure.com. They have top-of-the-line benefits, year-round work, even through the winter. Bauer, usher in the new era of infrastructure to an area near you. And as always, go Big Red!
Sandhills Global is hiring. Check out sandhills.jobs for more information. Sandhills is looking to fill hundreds of new openings in sales, traveling support, software development, web design, and more. Sandhills has a professional culture and is fast-paced with a focus on growth, innovation, and leading-edge technologies. Career and internship opportunities are available at our global headquarters in Lincoln, Nebraska. Apply today at sandhills.jobs.
It's football season, and that means coaches everywhere are busy making game plans. I'm Matt Knipe with Liberty Law Group. Teams make game plans because no two opponents are the same. At Liberty Law, we understand that no two cases are the same. Whether facing a DUI, criminal charge, or you were injured and it wasn't your fault, we tailor our legal game plan to meet your unique needs. We are relentless trial attorneys serving all of Nebraska. To learn more, go to libertylawnebraska.com. That's libertylawnebraska.com.
What would you tell a friend who was on the fence about going to Limitless Mail?
I would tell them to go to Limitless today. Don't hesitate. You're going to second guess yourself on if it's the right decision. The staff there is amazing. The treatments work. I'm living proof that it can completely change your life for the better.
Join thousands of men who have changed their lives with testosterone treatment. Slow down the aging process and live life. Schedule your free consult at limitlessmail.com.
Live from the heart of Lincoln, America, welcome to Ticket Weeknights on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
It's actually not Ticket Weeknights. We just use that because we're stream only for another week. NFL playoffs are on the radio version if you're driving around in your car right now, unless you're listening on an app like on, I don't know, YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or Twitch, or maybe you got Allo on your phone on the Watch Anywhere thing and channel 961. You can be listening to us not on your radio, but NFL playoffs on the radio. We're on the stream. Next week, we're back on the radio and stream. The following week, Super Bowl Sunday. Let's face it, if we did a show, if Tom Stevens right there and myself, Mike Belby, did Husker Rewind on Super Bowl Sunday, we would spend the entire game with the mics open, completely unfiltered, watching the Super Bowl and not paying attention to the radio. So
Which might actually be pretty good radio.
I actually think it would be interesting.
Our
to
mouths
listen
would be
to.
crammed full of hot wings and other things.
Oh yeah, like barbecue little smokies and meatballs and all kinds of stuff. Anyway, so no show. Super Bowl Sundays. No, next week we will, but in 2 weeks for Super Bowl Sunday.
Right.
No show.
There have been years where they did take.
They have, yeah.
They did go right to the Super Bowl, but this is a 2-week break this time.
Yeah,
but so we'll be back next week, but not the week after.
Yep, and then a run up to May 19th.
Yeah,
and then a little bit of a hiatus to catch up on some family stuff and
there you go.
Some time to just enjoy life.
We've always done the show all year long, but this year we're going to take a bit of the summer off. Not the whole summer off.
No, we'll be back in time for fall camp and football. So,
just to finish out the show, I thought it was interesting. If you saw it in the paper today, John Cook's comments on the season, the Husker volleyball season, and how it went, and his explanation on why Nebraska took a few transfers that they normally wouldn't, and how coaching in general has changed because of NIL. Obviously really proud of this team. He talked a little bit about Harper Murray and explaining her comments, saying, yeah, because she did take some criticism a little bit during the presser after the game, after Texas had dominated Nebraska. Yeah, we're going to win 2, maybe 3 championships.
She said we're going to win the next 3.
Yeah, and
there was no 2, and then Becca Alec with her comment afterwards that we can't say on the radio.
Yeah, and I love that. And Cook said I love it as well. It's part of the reasons one of the reasons I recruited these girls is their confidence, their ability to play at a really high level and then back it up. But yeah, Texas was really good and a much older team, and Nebraska's kind of taken a step in that direction a little bit. He did say, that is John Cook, hey, nobody had left, we wouldn't have taken anybody from the transfer portal. But girls did leave. Allie Batenhorst just announced that she's just going to play beach volleyball, but then she's going to USC. Caroline Juravicius is going to Penn State. They lost a middle blocker to Penn State as well. So they had no choice but to dip into the transfer portal. Yep. And he did mention, that is John Cook, that it seemed like in years past, you were able to enjoy the Final Four a little bit more. Now you get home and girls transfer, and you have to work again and recruit and replace those girls.
Yeah, Maggie Middleton and wound up at Penn State. Hayden Kubik left. So
is Middleton on a basketball scholarship at Penn State or a volleyball scholarship? I don't know.
I have no idea.
Because at Nebraska, she was on a basketball scholarship.
Yeah, and she's going to try to play both at Penn State there. More power to her, man. The young lady is a tremendous athlete, and we wish her nothing but success. All the girls that transferred out this year wish them nothing but success, but it opened the door. It'll be the first time since John Cook's been here. He kind of took a little bit of heat about throwing some shade towards teams like Texas and Penn State and Wisconsin that bring in 6 transfers a year.
Yeah.
And, that's not the way to build a program. And this is going to be the first time ever he has had more than 2 players that transferred in on his roster in a given season. And he'll have 3 next year with the middle blocker that we just added. So,
time for a Get Off My Lawn nomination. Do you have one?
Oh, yeah. The list is long. Andy Reid, Pat Mahomes, the little Panchenko kid. I'll tell you what, he plays as hard as anybody. Total respect to him. But Travis Kelce, the whole Kansas City, just no. Get off my lawn, man.
The chefs,
get off my lawn.
I don't like him either. I'll just pick the same guy I picked all season long, Jim Harbaugh. You can get off my lawn. Go to the NFL.
Well, and the funny thing is, I do think this is going to be kind of reminiscent of Pete Carroll and USC, and I'm not going to be surprised when everything is said and done if Michigan vacates or has to vacate the title.
I understand why they did it.
But it'll be 4 years down the road.
Yeah, I don't think they'll have to vacate anything. I think the NCAA has lacked a spine for its entirety.
Yeah.
And why would that change?
It's one of the most dysfunctional organizations I've ever seen from a compliance standpoint.
Well, there you go. The NCAA, add them to the list. Get off my lawn.
There we go.
Get off my lawn. Fun show. We will be back next week, and we'll talk about Husker football and basketball as we always do. Maybe there'll be some Husker baseball news. It looks like they finally settled on the roster. I think the final cuts were made. So I'm happy about that.
Yep. First practice was yesterday.
25 new players for Husker baseball.
Yeah. But the key thing to me is the guys that are back are guys that needed to be back. They have the chemistry. They have the formula that Will Bolt and Rob Childress and Lance Harvell want to right. run this program by. They know what the culture is. So it's going to be interesting because you and I both know, man, as hard as Coach Bolt, Coach Harvell, and Coach Childress work and what they demand out of their players, I have to think, man, this is going to be a fun season to be a Nebraska baseball fan.
And we will have Lance Harvell on during the season. He's the best.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think, weren't we going to try to get him for today?
We were going to try to get him.
A prior commitment.
He's got a lot of stuff going on. There's not much time before the season starts, but he's going to be very willing, I think, to talk to us throughout the season. And he's always great. We'll see. This is a team that doesn't, I don't think, have the major leaguers that last year's team might have had or the home run hitting power that last year's team. But I do think it does have more depth. I think it had the top ranked JUCO class in the entire country. Yep. There's not a lot of schools that recruit the JUCO ranks as much as Nebraska still does. And they're missing out. I think when COVID hit, people started ignoring the JUCO ranks more and more and went more to the transfer portal and the high school ranks. But there's some really good players still at the JUCO level, and Nebraska is going to continue to recruit those guys. I just think this team will have more depth. I don't think that they'll be as maybe physically imposing as some teams before, but I'm hoping the pitching staff and the depth prevail for this team.
Yeah, and I want to take a quick look here at the roster that's posted because I want to make sure that a couple of guys are still on the roster. And it's one where I'm kind of like, I really hope that they finally come into their own and become what you thought they could. Yeah. And one of them is a right-handed pitcher out of Elkhorn, Nebraska, Drew Christo.
This looks like his year.
He's a guy that has his stuff is good. His stuff is first 3 or 4 rounds of the Major League Baseball draft good. Yeah. And he's just had things that he just hasn't been able to do or to have the results that I think we all thought he might. But he's the one guy that I'm so excited to see what this year brings for him. All the experience that he's got, 3 years in the program, having Rob Childress be the guy that's going to work with him day in and day out and be his position coach. I'm really excited to see what he can do. But this roster, man, let's face it, we know they're going to play hard. They're not going to hit 97 home runs again this year, but it's going to be a great team to watch.
We're leaving. We'll be back next Sunday and every Sunday, except for 2 weeks from tonight, Super Bowl Sunday. We will not be here, but back next Sunday, 5 to 7. Mike Melby, Tom Stevens, Husker Rewind. We'll see you.
See you.
After a long, hot summer, are you ready for fall? What about your home? Is your heating system ready for cooler temperatures ahead? Be sure and call Bryant for your fall heating check. No matter what brand of equipment